I have a very strong sense of justice and wanting to do the right thing. And in law, no matter where you are, that's the guiding principle. One of the beauties of law is every case is different. And you learn all about a different industry once you get involved in it that you know nothing about. And in order to represent someone in court, you have to become their expert in that field, whatever it is. I'm a litigator, which means I do courtroom work. And I don't see it to be an advantage or a disadvantage one way or another to be a woman. It's just a very hard business. And when I first started out, there wasn't as many women in litigation as there are now. But there are many, many women judges that are in the courtroom. So I don't see that to be a barrier at all. My parents, they're very, very hardworking people, and they valued education. And my dad would say to me, you need to get the best education you can. To this day, he tells his grandsons, you got to learn something every day. And, that's true. I approach my job and the community and my family in that way. Kamehameha Schools, anytime you see the students, it's such an empowering experience. And education, as we all know, is an equalizer. It allows all of us to really enhance ourselves in the community. So to see young kids getting really good education to then moving on to doing things that they would never have dreamed would have occurred, it's pretty inspiring. My children are involved in community service. We bring them with us to show them the value of what community service is. We told them, find something you truly want to do, and we'll support that. I always say to young people today, find your passion. Because if you find that, then work is easy and it's fun and you're giving back and it's only good things can happen.
Greater Good Radio. Connect, learn, heal, and grow. This Greater Good archive video is brought to you by Brain Gain Hawaii, a boutique executive recruiting, career development, and coaching firm. Learn more at braingainhi.com.
Welcome to Greater Good Radio Hawaii, where we develop tomorrow's leaders by bringing you up close and personal with today's top business people. Greater Good Radio Hawaii is dedicated to social entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Leong, and with me is my co-host, Carrie Leong.
Mahalo, Evan. Today's guest is Crystal Rose, partner in Bays, Deaver, Lung Rose, and Baba since 1989. Crystal was recently recognized as PBN's Businesswoman of the Year for 2005. Please welcome to Greater Good Radio, Crystal Rose. Welcome to our show, Crystal.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Congratulations on being named Businesswoman of the Year for 2005.
Again, thank you very much. It was very much of an honor that I'm very humbled by. Thank you.
So could you explain to us or give us in detail, what is your everyday schedule like? Because, you're involved with so many community organizations, you're an attorney, you're a mother. What's your everyday like?
Like everyone else, we juggle between business and family and our community. I have teenage sons, and most of my morning is getting everybody up and out the door. I'll be honest, they get me up and out the door. And then I get to work and I do what I need to do there. And my evenings usually end up either with some community issues or primarily with my family, because my sons are 14 and 17. And it's easier now as they're older, but it still has those issues involved of being home at night.
So your days usually start about what time and end about what time?
I get up at 5 in the morning and I'm usually get through the evening news, and that's about it.
So how are you managing your time between nonprofits, the various boards you sit on, and then your business?
I don't see it as a one or the other. I actually see it as all part of business, because I believe that if we support our community, then it actually supports business. And I truly believe that. So I guess in my mind, there's not really, this is nonprofit and this is business. It's all business. So I look at it more in a global approach than I would separate it.
Did you always think that way, or did you just come to that conclusion as you got more mature in your career?
I've always thought that way. I'm a graduate of the Kamehameha Schools, and I think the ultimate of servant leadership was Bernice Pauahi Bishop when she gave both of her wealth and her lands to the school with the idea of giving back and taking care of her people. It's something that you learn. I learned in high school that we all need to give back to our community. My parents were very, very involved in community activities. So it's just something we do. My husband is very, very active in the community. He sits on more boards than I do, nonprofit-wise. And we actually decide to kind of get more focused and have to not be everywhere, decide on particular organizations we really support the mission and want to be involved in.
So at what point did you decide that you wanted to go into law, to be an attorney?
I think that occurred when I was in college. I have a very strong sense of justice and wanting to do the right thing. And in law, no matter where you are, that's kind of the focus of it, or that's the guiding principle. And it probably happened for me in college.
You didn't think that you were going to be an attorney prior to going to college. You came up with it in college.
Yes.
Was there something in college that made you change your mind to that profession?
Well, I knew I wanted to get more education, and I knew that a law degree would be helpful in no matter what I chose to do. And so I started to focus down that road. I didn't go there thinking I'm going to be a lawyer, but it has a natural tendency.
And what brought you back to Hawaii? Because you did get your college education in the mainland.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. I went to school in Oregon, and then I went to law school in San Francisco. I think being born and raised here, you have a passion for the islands, and you want to come home. And I always knew I wanted to come home and raise my family here. I think it's a wonderful place for children. It's a wonderful place for family. It combines family, community, and business in a way that I don't think I've ever seen in any other city in the world.
So I was reading some articles up on your background, and as an attorney, you've been a part of a lot of the major cases in Hawaii. One of the questions I was curious about was, how did you become a part of these, cases? How did they choose you as an attorney?
That's actually something I would have to ask the clients and not myself, to be very honest. I'm hopeful that the fact that they thought I would bring value to whatever issues they had to the table. I like to make sure that whatever I do, we do it strategically. We're looking out for the client's best interest. We're always operating and functioning in a manner in which we provide good service, and that more importantly, that we problem solve. Because as lawyers, it's not important whether you win or lose. It's really whether or not you've solved the client's problem. And sometimes that doesn't always happen in a courtroom. That happens outside.
Crystal, as a female, you deal with so many businessmen. At what point in your career, or when did you notice in your life that you had the confidence and the know-how to be able to deal with businessmen on the same level?
Well, I've been practicing now about 24 years. When I first started out, there were a few women that were ahead of me that were very huge and great role models for all of us as women. And I don't think I ever felt I couldn't do anything. And that's probably more attributed to my parents and saying, you can do it all. And so I've never had a feeling or never thought I couldn't do something. It was rather how I would do it. And I think that's more of a difference between men and women than I think if you can do it, but how you want to do it.
That brings us to another point then, because a lot of the guests that we've had come on have talked about kind of an inferiority complex from people in Hawaii. For some reason, even if we have the same talent and skills, there's this inferiority complex amongst a lot of people. Have you noticed that? Have you ever had to deal with that?
I think you may feel it as it relates to perhaps when you are on the mainland or dealing with lawyers in New York, or they just will obviously not think that you're of the same caliber than they may be. I never felt that way. I think if you have those kind of thoughts, then you project those thoughts. So you don't want to think it because then it's not true.
At the same time, you grew up in the Big Island.
Yes.
And a lot of people compare the Big Island to Oahu because the pace is so different. They call it Oahu the city, and it's so much faster pace. Was it difficult for you to make the transition? And what's your thoughts on Oahu compared to the outer island?
Well, I was born and raised on the Big Island, and I'm very, very proud of it. My grandmother is still there. I go there very often to see her. Some parts of my family are still there. What I think the Big Island does is you get raised with really good values. People there work really hard. They're very honest. They're very responsible. They have a value of community. They understand what that means. And I think those values were important for me when I came to Honolulu and got involved in business, because I knew from the way I was raised that I needed to be involved in the community. It's part of my being. It's part of who I am. And for that, I think the neighbor islands have an advantage. Unlike some of Oahu, where there's too much emphasis on getting from A to B, you don't tend to sit back and say what's really important here and how do we accomplish that.
And what's been really amazing is that we've been interviewing a lot of people that grew up in the outer islands. Yeah. And it's like you folks were in a nut for a little while, a part of your life, and all of a sudden you folks exploded. I mean, there's so many successful people coming from the outer islands, and they're just on fire. It's amazing.
Well, I came to Honolulu when I was 11. I was a boarder at the Kamehameha Schools. I was entering the 7th grade. I remember going to Aloha and being afraid to get on the escalator because I had never had that experience before. That thing moves, I don't. How is this going to affect my toes, slippers, all of those issues? So what it taught me at a very young age is, the world is so big and we need to explore in as many ways as we can. And even as those of us on Oahu, it's important to get to the mainland, to travel to the world, to see other things, but to know, to hopefully bring back the best of that to Hawaii and incorporate that into our lives.
You did mention that you had a lot of mentors in your life and also in your career. Are you able to share with us maybe one or two mentors that have really impacted your life and some of the lessons they taught you?
I think the first and foremost were my parents. They're very, very hardworking people, and they valued education. And my dad would say to me, you need to get the best education you can. I try and instill that on my children as well. And more importantly, that life is a learning experience. To this day, he tells my sons, his grandsons, you got to learn something every day. And, that's true. And, he's in his 70s, and that's what he believes. And I think I approach my job and the community and my family in that way. We can learn every day something new. And for me, that's what makes life exciting and work exciting, because nothing's the same.
What do you think has been the most important factor in contributing to your business success?
Passion. I think the fact that I have a passion for what I do, that I care about it. And when I say that, that is not a trait you're going to find on an SAT test or an LSAT or anything like that. It's just you have to have that type of passion. It drives you when no one else can. It drives you when, you're getting the bad decisions from the court, but you have to truly believe in what you're doing and why you're doing it. I always say to young people today, find your passion. Because if you find that, then work is easy and it's fun and you're giving back and it's only good things can happen.
What would you consider as your passion?
I have a passion to help people solve their problems and getting back to problem solving. As lawyers, we shouldn't create problems. People come to attorneys because they have a problem they can't solve by themselves. If they could solve it by themselves, they would never hire me. So my job and my passion is to figure out a way to get them what they want. My first question to many of our clients is going to be, what's your objective? What are you looking for here? Usually they're angry, they think they've been wronged, but they have to sit back and think about what they want, because that's a different question than, whether you've been wronged or not. So I find my passion to be wanting to solve, be part of solving in a very strategic way business problems in town.
In what point of your career did you know that you could do it all? You could be a businesswoman, you could be a community contributor, you could be a mother, you could be a wife, you could be a daughter and granddaughter.
Yeah.
Or did you always know I could do it all?
I always knew I could do it all. I will tell you that things change. What I did when my children were little is different from how we as a family operate today. I have lots of family help. My parents, for example, my husband is a huge help. And now so is my sons. We work as a family unit. Just this morning, I forgot something at home and I needed it. And I called my son up and he brought it into town. And so you have to give and take and have that overall responsibilities. I'm not home all the time. They need to understand that that doesn't mean I don't care. That doesn't mean that we can't communicate. That doesn't mean we can't still be a family. There's just lots of different ways to accomplish what you truly believe is important. My children are involved in community service. We think as a family that's important. They need to learn now as kids that we give back. I have a very proud picture of my youngest son when he was about 8 years old on this bulldozer cleaning the community park. And that's right. That's how it should be. And that's what Hawaii's all about. And that's what makes living here so special.
And so are you just having them come and be a part of the organizations by cleaning up and things like that? Or are you giving them the message that they need to go find something maybe they believe in with a separate organization?
First, we bring them with us to show them the value of what community service is. But I also am saying to them, find your passion. My older son is 17. He's a senior this year, going to be a senior. We told him, don't worry about a summer job. Find something you truly want to do and go do it. And we'll support that. And we'll support you in doing that. He's exploring a few options. And hopefully he'll find something that's going to touch his heart and is going to make him want to give back in a way that's important.
Crystal, so after looking at your bio, it seems that you're pretty passionate about giving back to the Hawaiian community as well.
That's correct.
I noticed Hawaiian Homes, schools, Native Hawaiian Legal Council, or Legal Corporation. Why are you into that? What does it mean to you?
Well, I am very passionate about the Hawaiian community. I truly believe that with proper help and support, members of the Native Hawaiian community can do far, far more than what they are currently doing. And we need to help those groups, and especially those of us who have been helped. You know, I'm a recipient and a beneficiary of the Kamehameha Schools. It's my way of giving back to many, many who didn't have the privileges I had. And I feel really, really strongly about that.
So what is your involvement with these organizations? What value do you feel that you add, or do you add, and what are you doing with them?
I serve on the board of directors of the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. It's a nonprofit organization that provides legal services to Native Hawaiians, primarily in land and other matters. Our goal there, and my value, hopefully, is to be a responsible board member to make sure that the organization is financially sound, properly governed, handling themselves in a more business-like manner, and that allowing the administrator and the management to do what they do, which is representing Native Hawaiians in various court proceedings. They have been very successful and, very proud of all of what they have done. For example, the Kamehameha Schools, I serve as one of their attorneys. My hope is that I provide value both from a legal standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, as they move forward in trying to extend the reach and educating more Native Hawaiians. Again, all of it in an attempt to give back in ways you can.
Do you have any maybe personal stories that you can remember, or something that happened with one of these organizations that really kind of maybe changed your perspective or had some, special meaning to you?
Well, I think in particular at Kamehameha Schools, anytime you see the students, it's such an empowering experience. And education, as we all know, is an equalizer. It allows all of us to really enhance ourselves in the community. So to see young kids from perhaps difficult backgrounds getting really good education to then moving on to doing things that they would never have dreamed would have occurred, it's pretty inspiring. And that is what Bernice Pauahi Bishop saw happening, and that's what we should all be wanting to do. And I can support that. Kamehameha Schools this year has 2 new campuses, one on Maui, one on the Big Island. They're graduating their first class of seniors. These kids from parts of the Big Island that could never have this type of education are now going to college on the mainland. I think that's pretty neat, pretty exciting.
Crystal, are you able to give us some advice for our listeners out there about getting involved in the community and just pushing forward with their career?
Yes, I would like to suggest, and again, I come back to it, is find your passion. Don't look at it as it's community versus business. It's all one. What's good for the community is good for business. You get involved in the community, it develops leaders. It teaches you and gives you experiences maybe you couldn't get in business, but will enhance your business. I think they complement each other, and I strongly, strongly tell my young associates in our office, find something that you're passionate about and get involved in it. You meet people, you meet clients, they all kind of work together after a while. My best clients are my friends, and I've met them in community.
Do you ever think that it's a period where maybe people are too young to get involved? Maybe they should focus more on their career, or should you get involved as early as you possibly can?
As early as you possibly can. I don't think it hurts. And there's lots of different ways to get involved. You don't have to be the president. You don't have to be the chair. You can just take on a small role in a different way. Not everything has to put you in charge. There's lots of ways to contribute.
And what about for younger leaders out there that may want to take more of a leadership position in these types of organizations? What should they do to get started or find out more information?
I think speaking with the executive directors of all of these organizations is a good start. Usually, most of these organizations that I know are thriving for new talent and young talent and want to have a board, for example, that has a span of experiences and has young people that are going to be able to take on more experience and more responsibility as time goes on. You just need to know that you start small and it's going to blossom and take you wherever you want to take it, And I really encourage people to get involved. And it's really easy to get involved in an organization you believe in. So find something that the mission is something that you can support and you truly believe in. Very, very easy to do.
On these other boards, the for-profit boards, Central Pacific Bank, Hawaiian Electric, and so on, how do you get involved with these types of companies? How do you become a board member for something like that?
Generally, I think they have a nominating committee, and someone within the board will have put forward your name to be on the nominating committee. There's generally then a screening process and an interview process that happens. And in each of the boards, the process may be a little different. It's going to be appropriate to that organization. I've also recently been put on the Hawaiian Holding Companies board. So now I have 3 corporate boards that I sit on. And they're all been a little different, but generally there's a nominating committee, a screening process, and then an ultimate vote by the board members to be added to the board. Then thereafter, it would be a vote by the shareholders.
But you get to say, yes, you want to be nominated or
Yes.
not, right?
Yes.
Wow, what a busy person.
When they do that, how are they determining that?
The boards that we sit on when we're looking for new members, what you look at is the composition of the board, what additional strengths or weaknesses you think the board could use, and what particular type of board member you may be looking for. For example, do you need someone with financial expertise? Do you want somebody with community involvement? They may be actually looking for a particular type of experience, and then they probably go out and seek it. That's what we've done on the boards that I sit on when we're looking for new board members.
At one point, I had met a woman who was, I guess, kind of known as a community leader, and she was really involved in different organizations. And I kind of asked her, because at that time I was kind of thinking about getting involved in the community, but didn't do so much. And I said, well, at what point did you know that it was time to get involved in the community? And she kind of asked me more about me and, because I have 2 young children. She said, oh, don't get involved in community now then. You just got to spend your time with your kids. And I got taken back from that because I thought, well, couldn't I do a little bit? And she's like, nope, just spend your time with your kids because you're going to miss it all. And I thought, well, I wanted to bring them to some of the events too. So I didn't really take her advice, but, being that you're involved with so much and you have 2 children, you also mentioned that when your children were younger, things were a little bit different. I just wanted to know what your view on her advice was to me and what your thoughts on that was.
Well, I disagree with her advice, and I'm glad you didn't listen to it because I think you can get involved as early as possible. For example, when you have young children, just getting involved in your children's school, that's a sense of community. A school is a community. All schools need help, whether they're private or public or wherever your children are, preschool. And there's lots of things that you can do just in that small environment. And I guess I don't always look at it that community means that it has to be some big organization outside with some big involvement. Deciding you want to do that can be helpful. I was very active in my children's schools when they were little in particular. They had fundraising events. That's a way that kind of gets you out and involved. Through that, I've met people that got me on other boards because of that type of involvement. Success breeds success.
You said that, I guess, when you first got in your career, there weren't too many women yet, and there were a few that, you were able to look up to. But you said you've been in the business for about 24 years. Do you think it's an advantage or disadvantage being a female?
Well, I'm a litigator, which means I do courtroom work. And I don't see it to be an advantage or a disadvantage one way or another to be a woman itself. It's just a very hard business. And as a result of being a hard business, women tend to do other parts or other kinds of law. So you don't see as many women. And when I first started out, there wasn't as many women in litigation as there are now. But there are many, many now in the courtroom. There are many women judges that are in the courtroom. So I don't see that to be a barrier at all. The difficulty is anytime for, and I say this, which as much as I truly, truly value my husband and all that what he brings to the table, women tend to still be the managers of their households. And in doing that, we've taken on that extra burden of figuring out who's getting picked up when and where are we getting the groceries from and, planning Thanksgiving dinner. It all seems to fall, unfortunately, and fortunately, more on women. So that's the extra burden that we all have.
What's been your biggest challenge in your business career so far? And then how did you overcome that? What did you learn from it?
I think my biggest challenge is to manage time properly. And it's never easy. It's always a challenge. And finding that balance has been difficult. I think more recently, I've been more comfortable in knowing when to say no. And that's something I had to learn. That, it's easier to say yes and then be totally stressed out because you can't accomplish what you thought you could or there wasn't enough time. And to know those limitations and to know that you can say it's okay to say no to this is something that I've learned. And I think that's been one of my challenges.
Has there ever been situational type challenges in your career where you were taken aback and said, wow, just seems so overwhelming, but you got through it and you learned something from that?
Well, I think, the biggest case I've had has been the Bishop Estate controversy. It's probably been the biggest case in the last 25 years in the state of Hawaii. That was a huge, huge undertaking, and many, many people were involved. So by no means am I, the only one, and really showed you what happens when a community comes together and decides we've had enough and we want institutional change in an organization that is a pillar in this community and is so important to people. And I think that was a very, very, very difficult time, difficult case, trying and scary all together.
When you look back, what has been, I guess, your biggest accomplishment, whether it's in your career or in your life?
I would have to say my sons are my biggest accomplishment because they bring me incredible joy, and I'm very, very proud of them. Very, very great kids. On a business side, I'm very, very proud of what I've done for lots of clients over the years, but in particular, the change we've seen at Bishop Estate and Kamehameha Schools, I think, was pretty phenomenal. So,
Would you consider yourself lucky?
very lucky. I'm very, very lucky.
Who would you consider your primary mentors, and how have they changed your life or kind of guided you along?
I cannot say I've had a primary mentors. I think there's been different people that have helped me and supported me in different ways. Again, I go back to my parents. They're always been there for me. They're the string to my balloon, so to speak. My husband has been more than anything the string to my balloon. And then I say my partners in my law firm. They have been huge mentors to me as we both formed the firm and grown the firm. And to them, I am very indebted to them. They're there for counsel. They're there for support. They've been there for, just roll up your sleeves. We got to get this done type of thing. And it's just been a fabulous experience.
Can you remember any mentoring moment where, something was happening, your mentor kind of explained something to you or so on, and it made a huge difference?
I've learned a lot from a lot of different people. I always think and truly believe that we learn something every day. And sometimes we're learning it, not realizing where it's going to take you.
When you were younger, did you ever think you would be where you are today?
Well, I knew I would be hardworking, and I knew that I would do something that hopefully involved the community. I always wanted to be a mother and have a family. So that aspects of it, I would have to say yes. Mm-hmm. Aspects of did I know I would be serving on this board or that board, I would have to say no, because you don't kind of start out thinking that's going to happen in the world. And that's what's so wonderful about what we all do. The path can take you where you need to go. And if you are true to your core values of working hard and integrity and taking on responsibility and being passionate about what you do, wherever that road takes you, it's going to land in places that only good things can come from.
So if we could have the fortune to go back in time, is there anything that you would want to change in your life? And if so, what would that be?
I can't think of anything I would want to change. I've been pretty happy. Obviously, there's been some difficult times and struggles along the way. But all in all, I've been very, very happy. And like I said, I'm very, very lucky.
On a side note, I'm just wondering, Ed Case's campaign, you're running that, right?
Yes.
Is that because you guys are both from Hilo and you knew each other from before, or you just...
He and I are law school classmates.
Oh.
We went to law school together 28 years ago, I have to admit. I've actually been involved in all of his campaigns, primarily because I'm his friend. But more importantly, I truly, truly believe that we as a state need to encourage smart, hardworking, strategic thinkers to be involved in what I consider government. So not so much politics, but government. Mm-hmm. And he is the kind of leader that I think long-term for the state of Hawaii is what we need.
What are you doing at the Hawaiian Homes Commission?
I served on it a few years ago. We are appointed by the governor, and it's their commission oversees the Hawaiian Homes lands at the time. It was under the previous administration, so my term there was very short. But what you basically are doing is assisting or overseeing and providing guidance to the Hawaiian Homes Department as they're looking to put Native Hawaiians on the land. If you look at the needs of our people, if we have healthcare, if we have housing, and if we have education, with that, you have the three core things that people need to better their lives.
So, how are you choosing the organizations that you want to be involved in?
Primarily with that focus, is their mission geared to improving the lives of our community and in particular Native Hawaiians. So I serve on the Boys and Girls Club board. I think that they have a focus on youth and providing services in particular to children in the ages of 8 to 17. It's a very critical time. We need to keep those kids off the street. The enemy is not some other organization, it's the street. We have an ICE problem, we have a drug problem in town, and the only way when you have both families working and difficulty is to provide those types of services such that the kids have some place to go.
So, talking about the kids of tomorrow, there are leaders. What is it that you feel are the three most important things to teach your children?
Obviously, responsibility, and that comes in lots of different aspects of their lives. With responsibility, you need to work hard. You need to take responsibility for your own life and what you're doing and where you want to go. I think they need to be respectful in all aspects of life, because to do things that isn't done in a pono way is of no value. And finally, I think they should be passionate. They need to find what they're passionate about. I'll give you an example of why I feel strongly about it. My sons sail competitively. I'm from Hilo. I get seasick in a bathtub, okay? So I don't sail. I'm not a sailing family. But it's something my sons did and learned and took up through, summer programs. And they're very, very passionate about it. And we support that passion. And I own more boats that I've never been on because I think it's important for them to have that.
What do you think you'd be doing if you weren't an attorney today?
Something that would provide for the community and hopefully at a level that was very strategic and involved making sure that our community would be in a better place than when I came here.
If you were done with your career now, what would you do with your time?
Do more in the community, and I wouldn't mind seeing if there's a way that I could be more involved with children in either teaching or doing something at that level.
What are your plans for the future? Because, you're so young still, really. Where do you want to be? Maybe 25 years from now, I think is...
Well, I want to be doing what I'm doing and doing it better and doing more of it and all of the above. And I think that's all possible. And I look for new opportunities, new experiences. One of the beauties of law is every case is different. And you learn all about a different industry once you get involved in it that you know nothing about. And in order to represent someone in court, you have to become their expert, and in that field, whatever it is. I did a lot of construction law when I first started out. I know more about termites than most people would ever care to want to know about. But I know about construction projects and how they work and water infiltration and leaking windows and things like that. I don't do as much of that anymore, but I still have a passion for that. I think we should be building things properly. We shouldn't be in a place where you buy a house and it's not right. On the other side of it is homeowners need to take responsibility for when they buy something. They have to take care of it and maintain it and all of these things. But looking forward, there's all kinds of opportunities out there. You're right. Some days I feel really old, but I think I'm really young. I'm actually 48, and I hopefully have a good 20 plus years on me. And I want to keep doing what I'm doing, and I want to just add value. I want to make sure whatever I do, I provide value.
Yeah, that's exciting. I would like to see where you are in 10 and 15 and 20 years because you're such a powerhouse already, in the community, and that's awesome.
I appreciate that. I don't feel that I am. I just feel that we do the best we can.
If there's one message today that you'd like our listeners to get from this entire conversation, what would you like that message to be?
Get involved in the community. It should be part of your business, and be passionate about whatever you do.
Do you work side by side with your husband doing the community organizations, or are you guys kind of separate?
Some separate, some together. For example, he serves on the YMCA boards. I serve on Boys and Girls Club. He's involved in the Key Project, which is a project out on the windward side. I was previously involved in that project. We've kind of done things together as well as separate.
Do you notice a change in maybe relationship, being that you folks have the same philosophy of giving back to the community and being involved in it together as opposed to, just one person being involved or doing it separately?
It's just part of what we do. So it's not something that I think we sit back and think about. If anything, we're always constantly challenged by balancing our time commitments and making sure that we don't let anything overpower what we need to do for the boys.
In your busy schedule, why did you decide to come on and join us on our show?
Because I think it's important. I hope that a little bit of what I said would inspire someone to get involved in the community. I think that the benefits are from fabulous and way, way greater than anything that people will realize. If they're not involved, they should be involved. And my hope would be that would be the case.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you, Evan and Carrie. Appreciate it.
If you resonate with Greater Good Radio, please join our community at www.greatergoodradio.com, where you can get access to exclusive content and offerings. Hope to see you soon.